In the unforgiving waters of Alaska's Aleutian Islands, the line between death and survival is razor thin. On December 8, 2004, the 738-foot Malaysian cargo vessel MV Selendang Ayu, adrift after catastrophic engine failure, would break apart on the rocky shores of Unalaska Island. But before the ship met its fate, a Coast Guard rescue mission went terribly wrong when a massive rogue wave crashed over the hovering helicopter attempting to save the stranded crew. This is the story of how a routine cargo shipment became one of Alaska's worst maritime disasters in recent history. A perfect storm of mechanical failure, severe weather, and the unforgiving sea. Hello, and welcome to Deadliest Disasters, where we cover some of the most devastating events that happened throughout history. Built in China in 1998, the MV Selendang Ayu was a relatively new addition to the global shipping fleet. A Panamax bulk carrier designed to be the maximum size that could transit the Panama Canal, the ship stretched 738 feet from the bow to stern and could carry over 60,000 tons of cargo. Registered in Malaysia and chartered by the Singapore-based IMC Group, the vessel was one of countless cargo ships that ply the Great Circle route across the northern Pacific, the shortest path between America's west coast and destinations in Asia. At the end of November 2004, the Selendang Ayu departed Seattle with a full cargo of soybeans bound for China. Captain Kailash Bhushan Singh commanded a crew of 26, most from India and the Philippines. Many were veteran merchant marines familiar with the North Pacific's winter dangers. What none aboard could know was that this routine voyage would end in disaster on the remote shores of Unalaska Island, nearly 800 miles southwest of Anchorage in the Aleutian archipelago. The northern Pacific in December is no place for the unprepared. Winter storms generate massive swells and hurricane-force winds. Temperatures hover just above freezing. Survival time in the water is measured in mere minutes. On December 6, 2 days before the disaster, the first signs of trouble appeared. In the ship's engine room, engineers noticed unusual vibrations in the main propulsion system. The chief engineer ordered an inspection while the vessel maintained its course. At this point, the situation wasn't considered critical. Engine issues on long voyages aren't uncommon, and the Selendang Ayu's engineers believed they could manage the problem while underway. But as the vessel pushed northward into the Bering Sea, weather conditions deteriorated rapidly. Forecasts warned of an approaching storm system with winds exceeding 50 knots and waves building to 25 feet or higher. The combination of mechanical issues and worsening sea conditions would soon create a critical situation, one that would test the crew's training and ultimately exceed the ship's capabilities. By 3 a.m. on December 7th, the situation deteriorated rapidly. The vibrations in the engine had worsened, and temperatures were rising dangerously in critical components. The chief engineer made the difficult decision to shut down the main engine to prevent catastrophic damage. With that decision, the Selendang Ayu became a 60,000-ton drifting hazard in one of the world's most dangerous waterways. Without propulsion, the ship was at the mercy of the Bering Sea's powerful winds and currents, and the forces were pushing the vessel steadily toward the rocky coastline of Unalaska Island. The ship's captain radioed out, quote, "Coast Guard District 17, this is motor vessel Selendang Ayu. We have lost main propulsion and are drifting southeast toward Aleutian Islands. Request immediate assistance," end quote. The Coast Guard Command Center in Alaska immediately recognized the gravity of the situation. A massive vessel with no propulsion drifting toward shore in heavy seas represented a potential disaster on multiple levels. The engineers aboard the vessel made repeated attempts to restart the engine throughout the day, but each attempt failed. Meanwhile, the Coast Guard diverted the cutter Alex Haley to the scene and began coordinating with a commercial ocean-going tug based in Dutch Harbor. But time was running out faster than help could arrive. By the evening of December 7th, the situation had become critical. The Alex Haley arrived and attempted to establish a tow line, but the extreme weather conditions defeated their efforts. The commercial tug was still more than 12 hours away. As dawn broke on December 8th, the Selendang Ayu was less than 10 miles from shore. The Coast Guard deployed 2 HH-60 Jayhawk helicopters from Cold Bay to begin evacuating crew members. The plan was to use a standard hoisting operation, lowering a rescue swimmer to the vessel's deck, fitting crew members with harnesses, and lifting them one by one to the hovering helicopter. It's a challenging procedure under the best conditions, but in 25-foot seas with 50-knot winds, it was extraordinarily dangerous. The following of what happened next is directly from the report done by the National Transportation Safety Board. Quote, about 1400, the Coast Guard began hoisting the first group of 9 Selendang Ayu crew members, wearing life jackets, from the deck of the freighter into the first HH-60 helicopter that had arrived from Cold Bay. At 1430, the second HH-60 helicopter arrived on the scene. 1450, the first HH-60 helicopter completed its hoist and flew the 9 Selendang Ayu crew members to the Alex Haley. Hovering above the cutter's deck, the helicopter lowered the crew members one at a time in a basket. Beginning at 1455, the second HH-60 helicopter hoisted on board the other group of 9 crew members and flew directly to a rendezvous point on Unalaska Island. By 1514, both HH-60 helicopters had landed at the rendezvous point. The rescued crew members were transferred to the first helicopter and flown to Dutch Harbor, where customs officials and medical personnel met them. The second helicopter flew first to Dutch Harbor and then to Cold Bay for a crew change. At this point, 9 Selendang Ayu crew members were still on board the Alex Haley, with the HH-65 Dolphin helicopter secured in its onboard hangar. One HH-60 Jayhawk helicopter was 30 minutes away in Dutch Harbor, and the other Jayhawk helicopter had left the scene entirely. 8 crew members remained on board the Selendang Ayu. 7 were the freighter's most senior and experienced personnel. The 8th was a deck cadet who remained on board out of loyalty to the master and who stated that he was confident in the successful outcome of the situation. Between 1500 and 1700, the crew remaining on the Selendang Ayu attempted to finish the engine repairs, while the master was monitoring the bridge, communicating by radio with the Coast Guard, and sending updates to the management office in Singapore. During that time, the Alex Haley informed the master of the Selendang Ayu that his anchors appeared to be dragging. When the Selendang Ayu master felt the ship hit bottom, he told the chief engineer to stop work and get everyone out. He then radioed the Alex Haley and requested immediate helicopter evacuation. The 8 remaining crew members on the grounded freighter assembled on the port bow where the 2 previous evacuations had taken place. The vessel was rolling badly in the shallow water and increasing ground swell. The HH-60 Jayhawk helicopter remaining in Dutch Harbor was dispatched to the scene about 7:30, and at 1801 the Alex Haley launched its HH-65 Dolphin helicopter to the freighter. The helicopter pilots decided that the HH-60, being larger, would perform the rescue hoist. This helicopter lowered a rescue swimmer to help the crew members into the basket that would hoist them into the helicopter. At approximately 1816, after the 7th crew member had been hoisted on board the helicopter and while the Selendang Ayu master and the Coast Guard rescue swimmer waited on the freighter's exposed bow, a wave larger than any yet encountered, according to witnesses, struck the bow of the freighter, sprayed up, and engulfed the HH-60. The helicopter's engines stalled. The helicopter descended, and its tail and main rotor blades struck the side of the Selendang Ayu. The helicopter then fell into the sea close to the freighter's forward port side, overturned, then sank. The Dolphin helicopter from the Alex Haley had been hovering nearby observing the rescue effort when it witnessed the wave and the crash of the HH-60 Jayhawk. The Dolphin immediately went into rescue mode. By 1836, the Dolphin had recovered all 3 of the Jayhawk's crew from the water, but only one of the Selendang Ayu's 7 crew members. With no other signs of survivors in the water, the HH-65 helicopter flew to Dutch Harbor to get medical attention for those rescued. At 1913, with the master of the Selendang Ayu and Coast Guard rescue swimmers still awaiting rescue, the freighter broke in half on the rocks. At 2035, Alex Haley's Dolphin helicopter returned and rescued the master and the Coast Guard swimmer. After sweeping the shoreline for survivors, the Dolphin flew back to Dutch Harbor, where the Selendang Ayu master and the rescue swimmer were treated for exposure. The chief engineer of the Selendang Ayu, the second engineer, the chief electrician, the chief mate, the third officer, and the bosun died in the accident. None of their bodies were recovered, and they are presumed drowned." End quote. By morning of December 9th, the true scale of the ship's disaster was apparent. The Selendang Ayu had disintegrated, its broken hull surrendering thousands of gallons of heavy fuel oil to the pristine waters surrounding Unalaska Island. The vessel carried approximately 424,000 gallons of intermediate fuel oil and 18,000 gallons of diesel fuel. In the days following the grounding, an estimated 300,000 gallons spilled into the surrounding waters, one of the largest oil spills in Alaskan history. The oil spread along more than 70 miles of pristine Alaskan coastline. The area, part of the Alaska Maritime National Wildlife Refuge, is home to numerous endangered species and supports one of the world's richest fishing grounds. Cleanup efforts were hampered by the remote location, harsh winter conditions, and limited access to the rugged coastline. For months, teams worked to remove oil-soaked debris and mitigate damage to sensitive habitats. The environmental impact was severe. Hundreds of birds died from oil exposure, shellfish beds were contaminated, the region's vital fishing industry faced uncertainty as pollutants threatened marine ecosystems. Investigators determined that the ship's engine failed due to inadequate maintenance of a critical lubrication system. A clogged strainer had restricted oil flow to key components, leading to bearing failure and the eventual shutdown. The investigation into the helicopter crash revealed the extraordinary risk faced by rescue air crews operating near distressed vessels in heavy seas. The massive rogue wave that downed the helicopter was determined to be an unpredictable event, but one that highlighted the need for enhanced safety protocol. The NTSB cited several contributing factors to the disaster: delayed reporting of engine problems, insufficient emergency towing capabilities in the region, and the absence of specific protocols for helicopter operations in extreme surf conditions. In the years following the Selendang Ayu disaster, significant changes were implemented in maritime safety and rescue operations. The Coast Guard revised its protocols for helicopter rescue operations near grounded vessels, emphasizing the dangers of breaking waves and surf zones. Alaska's emergency response capabilities were enhanced, with additional rescue tugs stationed strategically throughout the Aleutian chain. Vessel tracking systems were improved to provide earlier warning of ships in distress. For the families of the 6 men who lost their lives, no policy change could fill the void left by their absence. The sailors were remembered in memorial services attended by maritime workers from around the world. The environmental recovery has been slow but steady. While some oil remains trapped in sediment along the coastline, wildlife has largely returned to the affected areas. Fishing has resumed, though monitoring continues for long-term effects on maritime ecosystems. The broken hull of the Selendang Ayu no longer scars the shoreline of Unalaska Island. Time and the relentless Bering Sea have erased most visible traces of the disaster, but the legacy still lives on. The Selendang Ayu disaster reminds us of the sea's unforgiving nature and the courage of those who face its dangers. In these remote waters, where human presence is dwarfed by nature's power, we've learned harsh lessons about the true cost of seafaring in some of the world's most dangerous water. Thanks for watching today's video on this devastating but important historical event. If you found this informative, please hit that like button and subscribe for more historical deep dives, and let me know in the comments what other overlooked historical events you'd like to learn about. Until next time, this has been Deadliest Disasters.